This is Quakecast 61.
Wow, a familiar voice. RC is back on the Quakecast. Welcome back.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, too long.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back, though, because we have some pretty awesome guests on this episode.
Very special guests. Andrew Yoder and Christian Grawert, who are senior level designers at Machine Games, the developer behind the recent Wolfenstein titles and the new Indiana Jones game.
Yep, and Christian and Andrew, they're part of a team that's under Jörg Gustafsson. Now, you may know that name as the man who solely created Dimension of the Past, that episode that came out for Quake a few years back. But they worked under him to create a new episode called Dimension of the Machine, which is featured in the new Quake remaster.
Yeah, Andrew has been in the Quake scene for a few years, mapping and modding and sharing his fascination of sewer levels. And he started a Wednesday afternoon Quake club at Machine Games, and we'll hear a little bit about how that turned into something really special.
And of course, Quake fans are going to definitely recognize Christian's work under the name CZG. Man, his map packs, Honey, Terra, Ceremonial Circles, they're the stuff of Quake Legend Dump Truck. You know this.
Oh, yeah. So without further ado, we'll start with CZG.
My first experience with Quake was I saw it on a demo PC in a shop in Bergen, Norway. And I went up and started hitting the keys, and some kid that was like half my age came up next to me and said, "Oh no, you gotta do it like this." And then he started up me in like a Team Fortress server and disguised himself as a spy and killed me 10 times or something. And I was like, So that was the first experience. But later I saw like the game box in a shop back home, and I thought like, oh, that looks super cool. I want that one. And then I got that for Christmas later. And that's pretty much how it all started.
So how did you start mapping then?
When I first got Quake, I started like making little drawings on graph paper, and I had like the paper manual that came with the game. I did like little annotations, like if there's like a fiend here, like I'll write an F on the map, like some stuff like that. And I can't remember when, but like I saw the Aftershock pack for sale at a store near me, and like the pictures on the back looked awful, but like it had an editor. I was like, oh, can you make levels for it? So I was like in the shop with a friend. I was like holding Aftershock in one hand and Tomb Raider in the other hand, and my friend was like, get Tomb Raider. I was like, I maybe want Aftershock instead. So I bought Aftershock and messed around with the editor that came with that. That was Thread. Awful editor. It's super difficult to do anything. There was no documentation.
Mm-hmm.
But like I made a box map, untextured, and compiled that and got it working in the engine, and was like, maybe I can do more stuff.
That's quite a decision, though, picking Quake over Lara Croft. I mean, in the 90s, that was huge.
Yeah, that was pretty huge. And my friend was like, get the Tomb Raider, like she has breasts. But like I am gay, so like that didn't really appeal to me.
Right, you're like, I'm good on that.
Yeah, like no, I don't really care about that, but okay.
But you liked her style sense, I take it. So
yeah, super cool. And I love Tomb Raider, like for the first Tomb Raider game, and a couple of like the newer games, like the Tomb Raider Anniversary. Super great games, love those as well.
So what I want to do is connect you two together, how you met. I know there's certain things you can't talk about, but as far as projects and things, but we want to talk about how you guys met and how this kind of Wednesday Quake club kind of came to be at Machine Games.
I guess maybe I can take a crack at it, and Christian, if I miss anything, jump in and let me know. I want to say that like there's already a lot of Quake DNA here with Christian, obviously, but also with Yerk. And I think like the Quake Club started between Yerk and Mitcha. Mitcha was the lead level designer for a while. He's now at IO. But I think he and Yerk had talked about doing some kind of Quake mapping stuff, and I think that's how it started. I don't know,
Didn't
Christian.
you start it? I thought you started it.
I thought it was Mitcha. I know I was
Yeah,
talking
maybe.
with Mitcha as well, but I think
Yeah, yeah, maybe he was like talking about doing some mapping just for fun after work. So
yeah, I know. Yerk had a couple of maps, like he did the Dopa pack, Dimension of the Past. He had a couple maps that he was working on since the 20th anniversary, and I know he shared those with Mitcha, and Mitcha played through them, and then Mitcha passed those along to me, and I played through them, and that kind of got us talking, I think. And yeah, I think once it was clear that there was some like enough interest to give it a shot, I think I just asked the level design group like, hey, who all would be interested in doing some Quake? And at that time, it was before the pandemic had come to Sweden, so we could just basically go around the offices and say, hey, we're going to talk about Quake. And I think it's how we rounded people up. And
and yeah,
um,
you started bringing in Trench Broom to everyone and like setting up the folder on the network share with like Trench Broom, and everybody could just copy that over and start mapping. So that was really easy and nice.
yeah, I know it took you and Yerk a little while to switch over from Worldcraft.
Yeah, I tried using Jack for a while as well, but
Okay. I think like we had this kind of kickoff meeting where I gave a presentation to kind of bring people up to speed because some people had played Quake in the 90s and hadn't really come back to it. Some people obviously still play Quake and still think about it. So just kind of bringing everybody up to speed. And yeah, I did a little presentation that's like, here's a brief history of Quake. And I had a bunch of screenshots of like Rubicon and I'm forgetting what all I had in there, but a bunch of it was Christians. So
You're pandering.
Maybe.
Andrew, how many takers did you have on that when you presented it? Were people kind of like, I don't know, this is kind of old and I have other work to do, or did you have a lot of people jump in like, yeah, this will be awesome?
It's weird because like we were in the office at that point, and then we've been working from home for so long that it's kind of hard to remember. But like the office room that we were in was full. I'm trying to remember, was that like 10 people or something like that?
I can't remember either. But we can check the Slack channel.
That's a pretty
Yeah,
good turnout, though. Honestly, if you had that many people interested, I feel like it's a hard sell for people who are more interested in new tech.
yeah. I think though, like if you talk to Yerk a bit, if you talk with Christian, it's clear like the Quake roots go deep. So
Right.
like there's real value in trying to understand those things, even if it's all new to you, even if you've never played Quake. Which I think we had a couple guys in the group who, they played Quake 2, they played Half-Life, but I'm not sure if with a couple of them if they'd played through the original Quake the whole way, maybe the first episode, but I think some of the initial fun was just everybody taking the time to play through it and really think through like, ooh, I really like this bit, and having a lot of fun conversations about, like I really like Sandy's levels, and I know that
Mhm.
a lot of people have a real struggle with Sandy's levels because the spawns. But
Guilty.
it was really fun just talking through, seeing what different people liked, what they reacted positively to.
Well, and also, I'm guessing that some folks weren't level designers, so this is a good way to get their feet wet. I mean, I could be wrong, but was that the case that some folks that were in different departments came over and wanted to try their hand?
I think like we have some environment artists as well and some texture artists, but like it's all kind of within the 3D side of things. Like we didn't have anybody come over from surprisingly no programmers or anything like that. I don't think.
Interesting.
No, I think we were all level designers and then like an artist and a lightning artist, I think, and one environment artist from yeah, that's right.
So now from this kind of gathering of people, was that at a time that there were inkling of maybe a 25th anniversary, or was this just like totally on its own separate kind of thing?
I think we started just as like its own thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, the Christian. What were you going to say?
No, the same thing. Like it started as just a pastime for fun after work, and it wasn't like until quite a bit later. I'm not sure, like around the I can't remember when it was, but when Jark came and told us that we're thinking about doing like a re-release of Quake, and it would be cool if we can like make another episode for that. That's when it started like getting a bit serious.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah. What was the response? I mean, were people excited or freaked out?
I think a little bit of both. I think like for Yerk, you know, when he initially said, "Hey, maybe we should do something for this," I think he was thinking like, "Yeah, I could do another Dopa, basically." You know, like if all of us had said, "Oh no, that's too scary," I think Yerk would have been happy to put a pack together. But you know, enough of us said, "Sure, let's give it a shot." That yeah, it turned into something, I think.
And I wanted to chime in too and ask before we pass up anything about Dopa. I mean, Dimension of the Past came years before the pandemic hit, so I'm assuming you guys had this club going for quite a while.
No, Dopa was entirely Jark's own creation from
Oh, it was?
long.
Okay.
Yeah, he had been like working on those levels for like almost a decade or something, and finally, like when they was it for the 20th anniversary, he like gathered them together and just made a pack from them and ready to release. So those were like old devils that he had lying around.
Interesting.
I wish I had levels like that lying around.
Yeah, that would really explain why Dopa and the newer episode they feel completely different from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Jark had like those old Dopa maps. He had like built them targeting the original software Quake. So he had
right.
like he had like set a limit for himself of like 700 polygons per scene, and it was like really like basic, simple scripting and everything. So
I think it was like one of the fun things with the new episode is that, you know, we were kind of pushing back and forth, like how traditional do we need to be with this, or you know, how far is too far and no longer feels like Quake.
Mhm.
And I know like Yerk originally coming from like the Dopa perspective, where everything's very strictly following the original limitations. I think he was a little bit on the conservative side at the start, but I think he saw some of the stuff that that the rest of us were doing with like colored lights and fog and stuff like that. And he said, "Ooh, okay." And
yeah,
yeah,
he kept messaging me like, "Oh, I made this scene that has like 1,000 polygons in it. Do you think that's going to be okay?" And I was like, "Sure, go for
Go
it."
for it. So I take it he hasn't seen Forgotten Sepulchre or some of these other things, but that's hysterical. So then Yerk approached you. Now, how did the design of the overall episode kind of shake out? Did everybody kind of say, "Hey, I want," because I guess there are 5 portals, 2 maps each portal, unless I'm getting something wrong. But so how was that work kind of distributed among the gang, and how did the design meetings and all that stuff go?
Well, you probably noticed that there's actually 6 portals, but the 6th one is completed already. So I think our initial plan that we're going to make like 6 2-map episodes that would be connected by a hub like that, and like because we had like enough people to like cover each episode like with enough workload for each person. But in the end, there were a couple that had quit and also weren't like able to completely finish their own levels. So we like
Hmm.
compressed them and condensed them together into like the 5 episodes that we got today.
I think there was an earlier point where you really wanted to do a linear episode, like the traditional ones. And I think the hard thing there is you have to plan, the whole weapon progression for all the maps, and also, um, like consistency becomes a lot more important in the whole linear structure. Um, and
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
like, oh, go ahead.
yeah, that's another thing that was nice with having like the separate episodes is that like each episode can be its own completely different style and theme, and we don't have to like think of an overall narrative or anything like that. We just make whatever we want in 2 maps, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think like our initial approach, I think like even before we went for like before we said, hey, we're doing this this episode, I think our approach was like, hey, everybody just make stuff, learn the tools, have fun. That's kind of where the like the disconcerting unease packs came out of, is a lot of just hey, let's have some fun.
It shows.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think if we tried to structure everything as like one big linear experience, I think probably would have felt more inconsistent and would have been a lot harder. So I think it worked out.
Well, what I like about it is kind of like I hate to use a goofy reference, but like a box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're going to get. And I love that aspect of it. I was marveling at some of the themes and texture usage and combinations and things. So
And to build on what you're saying there, Dump Truck, I agree because if you look at the original Quake that came out, it kind of was a mashup of themes, right? Because you had the base theme and the fantasy theme. So you had those two things like kind of competing, and I know people discuss that at length, on the internet and whatnot. So seeing a new episode come out that has several different themes, it's almost like an evolution, really.
Yeah, I think one thing that a couple of the episodes really succeeded at, like Christians in particular, and also like the realm of the astrologers, is combining the like the more medieval ruin stuff with the tech stuff. And I think like in the original game, there's something there in the narrative, but like it's not ever explicit, like what's
Right.
connecting these worlds together. And I think like episode 2, realm of the blacksmiths, and episode 5, is it the astrologers, both of those tell a lot more grounded stories about the connections between the tech stuff and the ruins, and I think is awesome. Like it's it clarifies for me a lot of what was already going on in the base game, but just not very clearly.
I was looking at Witch Tape earlier, by the way, Christian. Now, obviously, I think I mentioned to somebody on Quake Mapping, I said, if you want a sneak preview of what, you know, Christian did in the new episode, take a look at Witch Mixtape. And were those things you were just playing with earlier and then they kind of made their way in because they're just such on a massive scale in your maps in this pack?
I'm not really sure. Like I don't really have any like design philosophy that I subscribe to, but I've been trying to like push having always mixing themes. Like I started to find it like kind of boring if a level just has one thing going for it. Is if it's like, oh, I'm going to make the royal palace, and then it's just a royal palace, and I don't think that's very interesting. You got to have some sort of upset or some sort of edge to that. Like the royal palace, but it has almost fallen into a volcano or something like that. So I always try to think of levels I design now as it's this, but it's also this. So you always get like this combination of several things happening at once, and I think that really helps with both the theming and the look of the level, and also with like interesting possibilities for gameplay. If you do like a level that is like set in a specific place, you're kind of locking yourself into the rules of that place. But like if you set a level in a specific place, but with this twist on it, you can like do whatever you want, really. So that's really liberating, and something I really try to do with everything these days.
That's very cool. So you're kind of a jazz maestro of mapping, I think. You can improvise and and bring themes together. That's cool. Sorry, that sounded really horribly fanboyish, but
That sounded super weird.
I do think, though, like what I really love about the mix of themes is that when done well, when done poorly, it's like with my two maps, I've got a mix of like the concrete tech base, and then there's like the ruins underneath, but like you don't really get a clear like what is the relationship between these things. It's very abstract. I think players like may not even realize that a transition happened between the spaces, which makes it like a weird kind of dream logic. But I think, Christian, what you're getting at is like these things are talking two different languages and they're in conflict with each other. And you see it in your episode where there are this tech that's bursting through the walls and cables that have been like attached onto things, and there's a history to it, right? Like the tech came after, and it's doing its own thing in conflict with the rest of this. I think like it's not just having the two themes; it's getting them to talk to each other, which is a whole lot harder than just saying it.
Yeah, but you can just like make one of the teams be like it's falling into a pit, and then you're done with
That's very true. I'm curious with all the different themes that were squeezed into this episode here, considering Quake has literally been out for 25 years now. It would almost feel like everything has been done, but there's definitely been, there's definitely some new things going on in this episode. So what did you guys use as inspiration for building these maps? I mean, were you just talking a lot, giving each other a lot of feedback? Were there certain other games or earlier levels of Quake that you guys looked at for inspiration? How did you come up with some of these?
Andrew?
Yeah, so I think like we all have a different approach to it. I'm really gameplay first in a way that isn't always like player experience first. Like I think with my maps, I built out, I used the prototype textures, and I didn't really have the theme figured out or the story of it, and I built combat spaces, and I'm pretty happy with how those turned out. But I know for other people, especially like the people who hadn't done Quake mapping before, Anton, who did the episode 5's first map, where it's the prison spaceship. Anton said, I want to make a prison spaceship. And, for me, I'm thinking like, oh my God, that sounds hard. I'm going to make my safe little combat encounters in boxy rooms. And Anton's like, no, prison spaceship. And Eric, who did episode 5 map 2, was like, there's this mining facility that's dug too deep and it's pulled up ancient ruins. And again, I'm there like, oh no, this is so hard. This is why. But thankfully with both of those, they brought so much imagination that I think, that inspired the rest of us. And, Yerk helped on Anton's level and Christian helped with Eric's. And, yeah, those levels that I was really scared about early on turned out as real standouts.
The entire product has gotten wonderful response from, a worldwide community. Obviously there are people that are hardcore that are a little disgruntled, but in general, I think people see the value of everything that, was put into it. Uh, I don't know if you guys can talk about that, but how did, like, besides your coming in and saying, "Hey, we're doing an episode," what other considerations were there? Did you know there was going to be kind of enhanced lighting, or did that just kind of slide in later? Because all that stuff's really great. I love the new stuff. It's so tastefully done. So talk about some of those new assets and some of that new tech that made its way to you.
Well, from the beginning, we weren't really sure if we were getting a new engine or not, so we were just developing on Quakespasm. But after a while, we figured out that it were working with Night Dive on putting Quake into the Kex engine or the Kex framework. And in the beginning, it was just like the base Quake engine with like no extra features, but like slowly it started trickling in dynamic lighting and like also like behind the scenes stuff like the localization of strings for the international market and stuff like that. So like they came out gradually for us, so we could like slowly implement them. And yeah, a couple of things like the dynamic lighting maybe came in a bit late for us to like really super utilize it, but still we managed to get some good use of it, I think.
Definitely. It really pops in certain areas.
Yeah, it's not overdone. It's not like, some people getting new toys, and so that's almost a good thing, right? Overall, the production, like, how long did you, like, was this an accelerated schedule, or did you have some breathing room and just kind of, was it a hurry up and wait kind of thing? Because I know tech and development, is crazy. So was this a quick turnaround, or did you, what was your kind of work situation like?
With things like the dynamic lights, we were able to test with, like, that's the nice thing about modding compared to like actual game development. Like this stable foundation, and we've got Quake Spasm, and we could basically get our maps to a shipping quality. And then if we got dynamic lights in, it's like, cool, we can add these as like extra seasoning to the maps that are basically done. There were a couple things that were a little scary. That some bug fixes here and there, but like that, yeah, I think like because of the mod foundation, because of being able to work with Quakespasm as a starting point, it was pretty smooth sailing.
So how did your team kind of feel when you saw the responses, or yeah, I guess you're still processing some of that.
It was awesome. It was super fun to like see all my friends on Twitter like raving about it and being for the most part being very very positive and happy.
Yeah, I think it was awesome. I think like for me the real highlight was it's been, like the modern source ports are great, but it's so hard to play co-op.
Yeah.
And with the remaster or re-release, I forget what the actual term is for it, but new Quake, it's so easy to play co-op. Like I've got a friend back home who I play co-op games with on the weekends. I said, hey, we're going to play some Quake. And we just booted it up and it worked. And it was, yeah. And like watching YouTube videos of people doing their co-op runs through it, that kind of stuff's just been a real joy.
Yeah, and I know that was one of the things that Dump Truck and myself were most excited about, because we do, co-op playthroughs on my YouTube channel, and, every now and then I'll be like, hey, you want to do one? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, hold on, I have to set up a server, do this, do that. And now, like you said, we could just jump right in and load up a mod or a map and we're good to go. I think that is one of the greatest features of it, honestly.
And crossplay too. I mean, just from an engineering standpoint, I watched the Night Dive interview, I believe it was Shack News, and just kind of hearing what they had to go through and how big it's to to gamers, it's like, oh, that's cool. It's a nice bullet point on the back of the box, quote unquote. But yeah, it's a huge engineering feat to get that working. I have yet to play it on consoles, but I want to. I want to get that experience. I want to feel that feeling of sitting on the couch, because again, Quake Spasm has, controller support, and I think there's ports with split screen, but it's like just setting it up and getting it to work is like, okay, my game time's over. I got to go walk the dog or whatever, so it's a beautiful, like, you can't put too much value on the ease of use. So it's been, as just a fan, and I am in the camp of, might eat my words one day, but I'm in the camp of, I don't really want a Quake 1 reboot. I mean, depends on who does it. But so this product is, and this release is just the sweet spot. And I think it deserves all the accolades it's getting, and people love it. And it just being in the Quake community is so exciting. It's like the next couple days after the release, we saw dozens and dozens of people coming to the Quake mapping Discord. And now we're having speed mapping things with 20 or more, entries. It's insane in just this short amount of time. So good job. You brought Quake back from obscurity, relative obscurity.
I wanted to chime in and just say, hey, those are Dump Truck's words. If anybody out there is working on a Quake remake, I'm open. So
right, no,
I'm open to it.
I'm not I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand, but
totally
depends on who was doing it.
I know one of the concerns that I had between the episodes, guys, was, if you play through episodes 1 through 4 and then play Dopa, most of that feels very old school Quake. And then you jump into Dimension of the Machine, and it feels like a completely different animal. Was this sort of a conscious decision? Was this based on sort of like releases that have come out the past 10 years that, to make this, a bit more difficult, add a lot more complexity to it? Was there a lot of decision making in process for that?
I think, like a lot of us have played Arcane Dimensions, and obviously, there's a lot to like about that. I think that we were trying to find a good balance, again, between like something that felt respectful of the original, like Dopa, where it's very strict and kind of conservative to the limits, but also gave it. We were trying to find a good balance between those things, and also like production realities. Forgotten Sepulcher. I can never pronounce it right. Like that map is incredibly detailed, and must have taken a really, really long time to build. So we were trying to find a balance that also made sense for the amount of time that we had. If we wanted to do every brick a brush, then we probably wouldn't have shipped with the set of maps that we did. I don't know, Christian, do you have any thoughts on that?
Only thought I can have about that is that I think we decided pretty much from the beginning, or at least Jarek really wanted for like this episode to be difficult and be like a real challenge for people to like, because like the original episodes of Quake are like pretty damn simple, really. So really stepping up the difficulty was definitely one of the things we wanted to do. In the end, I think maybe only Jarek's levels were the ones that really got bone hard with the difficulty. But I think overall as well, we tried to like really take that a little bit more than usual. But yeah.
Well, overall, difficulty aside and everything else, it turned out great. It's a great episode that it's officially part of the game now, which is super cool. I follow-up question to that though is that buried in the menus, you can actually download and play Quake 64. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I guess they like had that available and just put it there and then added a fun little post-processing shader and like, yeah, this is Quake 64.
It was a fun surprise because it wasn't even mentioned in the announcement at all. And then you go into the menu and you're like, oh my God, I could download Quake 64. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a nice little surprise.
Christian, you've worked on some massive titles, as has Andrew, and what are some of the design kind of habits that you brought from AAA and modern stuff where it's all meshes and crazy detail and you have environment artists? What are some of those kind of production and design aspects that you brought back to Quake, or did you just kind of went back to basics?
Like when I used to do Quake mapping back in the days, I always thought like, oh, copy pasting stuff. That's lazy and it makes for boring results, and you shouldn't do anything like that. But now I have really come to the conclusion that sure, make one super nice detailed like module and then copy paste that around and like add a crate here and there, and it will look really great anyway. Like people won't notice that it's copy pasted, or they will notice that it's copy pasted, but they won't care because it will look great anyway. So that's one philosophy I've picked up from AAA development. And another one is like keeping much more in mind not letting the player get too frustrated. Like have some sort of escape for them if like if they get stuck somewhere, like provide an option to make it easier for them.
Yeah, I think on that note, like we definitely like I think as a whole, the pack is a harder set of maps than vanilla Quake, but I think like we're harder in terms of enemy count and like some of the encounter design. We aren't doing as much. There are a couple exceptions. We don't just like randomly throw spawns at you out of nowhere. I think
Don't we?
we do a couple times, but like it's for laughs, right? Like it's they're
And it's
joke
always
spawns.
funny.
Yeah, I always laugh.
Me too. It's my favorite enemy in the whole game. Like, every time
We're aware.
every time I see a video playthrough and like a spawn pops in and the player goes like, "Oh, you!" Yes, yes.
Andrew, how about you from AAA? I know you're the big blockout guy, and I know you're the swamp guy. So, but what did you bring? What did you bring from AAA down to Quake?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I said, it's making sure not to be too mean, making sure that that when there's a trap, the player can work their way out of it. Making sure that like you don't have to actually save scum to get through. I think it's that kind of stuff mainly. One thing that I still struggle with is like every time I come to the question like, have I made this too hard? The answer has been yes, you've made it too hard, and that's true, and that's been true in like professional work as well as Quake stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how blind you become to your own difficulty. So, like when I set up difficulty levels for Quake level, I set up monsters and items so that I can finish it myself pretty easily, and I set that's the hard level. And then for medium and easy, I like remove monsters and add more items, and that usually turns out fine.
Less spawns.
Yeah,
No,
I do want to
no.
say that one of the things that like we had QA on board, so we had like they're all credited. So it was Dennis, Sabina, and Pierre. I want to say. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. But we had them on board helping playtest, and like not just like finding bugs, but giving feedback of like, hey, this is too hard. This is frustrating. And I think like we had a pretty modern sensibility to how we did playtesting and iterations on the maps. I think like I don't know the full story with original Quake, but I don't imagine they had QA testers play testing throughout development to make sure like everything was balanced. So I think we were really lucky that way.
What are your takes on allowing, progression to be broken, like, clipping, blocking things? I know it's done here and there in the pack and the new episode, but talk about that just a little bit, because for me, just as an amateur mapper, I don't want people breaking the progression. I just don't. I know that's not always popular, but I just can't handle it.
For my part, like as long as sequence breaking doesn't actually make the map literally unplayable, I'm like, sure, go ahead. Like if a player can like skip an entire enemy encounter, or like come around it like from the wrong side or something, I'm like, sure, let's allow that, as long as like you never actually get physically blocked from finishing the level. I'm like, go ahead. And like so sometimes it like you could allow a certain sequence break, but you'd like have to make some like complicated fix to allow it. And that case, we might as well just like, oh no, just like clip that off, don't allow that. But in general, I think, yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, I think I tend to lean a bit more towards the other side, which is kind of ironic because one of my maps is you can probably beat it in less than 30 seconds. Like you can grenade jump up to get the gold key. You don't even get the silver key, and then you push the one button that you can learn is the button that you need to push, and then you fight two Shambler and two Vors, and that's the map. It's like, oh dang,
It's coffee Quake all of a sudden.
yeah, and like I watch a lot of games done quick speedruns, and when I see a speedrun skip a part of a game that I really love, it's always kind of disappointing. It's like, oh dang, I was really hoping the speedrunner was going to go through this section. But yeah, I'm kind of conflicted on it, because like, hey, the reason why you could skip it is because the keys are in really readable locations that it's like, oh, I just need to get up to that ledge, which means you can grenade jump. So
yeah, I know where you're coming from though, Andrew. I've definitely watched some of those speed runs before, and I always feel that way too, where they're like, yeah, this is a glitch run of whatever game, and they find that like, yeah, if I jump through this one area of the level, I can actually skip to the end and kill the boss. And I'm like, okay, it's cool, but I don't know. Is that a speed run? I don't know.
yeah, I
But
mean, like the glitch stuff can be a lot of fun too, because
oh,
it
totally,
feels
it's
like
fun to watch. But
like the Half-Life 2 runs and Half-Life runs, because like it's this skillful glitching of like manipulating the movement.
Mhm.
All that stuff can be really exciting to watch, and I feel the same way with like Quake speed runs, where it's a lot about the movement. So I
Yeah,
think if
like
it was,
the portal speedruns where they just like put the portal in the wall in a certain way, and then they just you hear it, and the level is completed. Like it's super confusing. You have no idea what's happening, but it's also really fascinating that they like figure out how to do that so fast. So I'm all for that kind of running.
yeah, I think like Ocarina of Time's what comes to mind for me with like
Mhm.
the memory manipulation to, oh, it's bananas.
Yeah, that's some
um,
serious reverse engineering, and I can't
oh
imagine
yeah,
how long it took, or if someone just lucked upon some of those things. That's
Right.
crazy.
I always laugh at the ones where they have the cartridge and they're like, oh, if you set the cartridge just like halfway into the machine, then you could do this. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I don't know if I consider that speed running, but it is cool. Um, but yeah, I've seen some of these Quake videos that you're talking about too, where I watch people like run through an episode in like 30 seconds, and you're just like, oh my god, like how did they figure that out? That is insane.
yeah, and I guess like the balance is that's not going to be the casual run through. I think I was
Right.
watching. Oh, I'm forgetting who it is. Speedrunner Draku, I think it was Draku who did his playthrough of our episode, and he did the grenade jump sequence break on my map, and I was like, oh no,
No.
you skipped half the map. But I went back and played it, and like had the actual full experience. But like I think for most people, you aren't going to do the sequence break in your first couple playthroughs. So
Mm-hmm.
like it's okay.
I want to ask Christian about something. So I looked back at your Quadicted page, to see, take a look at all your maps, and I'm like, oh my god, I definitely haven't played all your maps, dude. But there was one thing where you kind of dropped off. I think it was maybe 2008. Most likely, you had a career and a life and a job and everything, and then you came back. I think it was 2020, and so how was it? Kind of, had you always mapped for Quake, like just on the side or fiddled around, or did you really put it down for all those years and come back?
I think what happened is I kind of got a bit fed up with gaming. During that time, the kind of FPS games that came out, I was like, I don't care about this. I'm not interested. I don't want to play this. So in general, I kind of like completely fell off the wagon in terms of gaming. I just wasn't really interested in getting anything or playing anything. And it was like that for a couple of years. And then I started playing Dark Souls, and that kind of like was my or like showed me that gaming could actually still be something fun and interesting. So I think like after I'd been playing Dark Souls and Bloodborne for a while, I started making that like a Dark Souls mod for Quake. Haven't gotten anywhere playable with that, but
Oh,
it
come
was
on.
but it was like a fun dream to have. Like I think I'm blocked because I don't have enough like spare variables to store the player state. But that was something I was trying to do for a long while. But yeah, I didn't really do much Quake mapping during those times. I don't know what I don't know what I did instead. Don't think I did anything noteworthy.
I think you were making some games, right? I mean, that's the thing, making videos for Quake and stuff. I'm an editor, so sometimes the last thing I want to do when I'm done editing is go and edit something. So I get it.
You get kind of fatigued just combined with like working with games and also like there not being any games released that you cared about. So it was like was a bit depressing, but it's getting better.
Did you have any inkling that Honey was going to be what it became? I mean, it's people talk about it at least once a week, if not more than once a week on the Quake Mapping Discord. It just comes up all the time. Super influential map. Did you have any idea what you were doing at the time?
I kind of did actually. Like not to be lame, but I kind of knew that it was going to be a pretty special set of maps. And just to make that clear, like a lot of the maps released later years have, of course, surpassed them in all possible ways. But I think like when they came out, they were like, yeah, this is pretty new and exciting. So I think I knew that when I was making them that it was going to be something. But yeah, it's nice to see that, or nice to hear that people are still talking about them. So that's good, I guess.
Yeah, it comes up often, quite often. So that's great. I could talk about mapping all day. I don't want to dominate too much here.
No, you're fine. I actually wanted to chime in and just ask CZG, of all the maps that you've released, this is sort of like the Entertainment Tonight question, but it's kind of like, of all the maps you created, what is your favorite and which one is your least favorite? Like, is there one you look back at and you're kind of like, oh God, I can't believe I released that, or that kind of thing?
Ooh, hang on, I need to open Quadicted and check out my own list.
Oh, that's okay. I could definitely answer mine because I've released a couple maps and I can say both of them are terrible. So don't play them at all.
Oh, that's not true.
It's totally true. But you've released maps like since the game came out almost. So, I mean, you have so many to choose from.
Most of them are like terrible speed maps, though. But
Oh, you've got 100 brush map in there. I can't remember the name right now, but it's so impressive. That it's such a cool map.
it's pretty.
It's one of the 100B ones. I can't remember the name of it right now.
I think the one I'm most happy with is hang on, I can't remember the name of it. Terra. Actually, I think that one is the one that I'm most satisfied with in the end, because it's just like such a simple set of maps with pretty like standard looking themes and no fancy gameplay. It's just like nice little compact maps that work well. So I think that one's my favorite, maybe. Least favorite, I'm gonna say CZG 07 is so overhyped and terrible. I'm like kind of embarrassed that it exists.
That's funny. I
That's
always like these questions
Insomnia?
because
Insomnia?
yeah,
Yeah,
Insomnia.
it's
I always
terrible.
like these questions
Oh.
because people will hear that and they'll be like, "Oh, Insomnia is my favorite." You know, they'll laugh at that. You know,
I know
so
at least one person who loves it. Yeah, that's
Oh,
funny. We did a whole
you-
jam. No, I think Ionis is a big fan because we did a jam. We did an Insomnia jam. Maybe you don't know about that. That's why I'm laughing.
oh damn.
That's funny.
Oh,
Yeah, we did a whole thing.
but did you mean to ask me what other levels from other people I like, or?
yeah, that's actually a great follow up. Yeah, are there other maps that you've played that you just are in
My
awe of?
absolute favorite map I've ever played in any game is Cecina Pound Peep from Rubicon Rumble-Pack by MFX. Such a great map. I just love everything about it, from the style to the gameplay to like the how it all connects together. It's so fantastic. Love that one.
Yeah, speaking of Rubicon, you had a hand in Rubicon too, right? Sense of scale. That what a great project. You want to talk about that for a minute? You know, like how that came about. And
Not
I'm trying
that
to get
much.
I'm trying to get metal on the show, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's not that much to say about it really. Like it was in a production for like a really, really, really long time, and I had like I think like 3, 4, 5 maps almost done for that. That's I threw away because John kept like one-upping me with his designs. He was like doing this super cool, like kind of like high detail but like low fidelity kind of design he was doing. So like everything is super detailed brushwork, but like simply textured, and like it kind of like blends together really well. And I was like, I want to try and make something that echoes that a bit more, and I like started maps over and over again. But yeah, I think the final map I made in the end turned out to be all right. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those landmark packs and landmark moments. And yeah, Rubicon Rumble Pack is staggering too. It's like what a follow up. So you see that competition, that friendly competition, that respect you all have for each other. You know, back from Funk and TerraFusion days and everything. I mean, do you ever kind of pop in and look at Funk message board or go on IRC or anything?
I have looked at it now after we did the Quake release. There's not much happening there these days.
It's very quiet. Yeah.
It's very quiet. So yeah, I don't have any reason to go there anymore. I'm not on Discord or anything either, and I guess the IRC channels are dead. I guess I don't know.
Well, you know, I don't want to say end of an era because Quake is eternal, right? Quake is forever. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of morphed over the time. I'm super delighted, and with all the there's just too many maps now. We're kind of getting not Doom. We'll never approach Doom as a community because there's just so much content, but it's kind of getting like that where you just can't possibly play everything that's released anymore. And it's things like Arcane Dimensions and now this Quake re-release that are kind of the catalyst for all that. So it's fun, And we see a lot of developers, who level designer pros that come in. I mean, Ball has never left. That's the one person in the community I think has never left. I don't think.
Yeah, he goes way back.
Well, I guess we should start wrapping it up. But I always offer to folks when we're doing the interviews. First of all, RC, if you had any other questions, that you go first. But you guys, if there's anything we haven't touched upon or anything that's you'd like to say about the re-release, the floor is yours.
I guess I'll snip in this question here real quick, Dump Truck. Yeah, I just wanted to know from you guys, having said everything we said about the remaster and Quake's history and everything here, what can we expect from Quake in the future? Do you guys think there might be some more episodes or anything like that, or do we not have any plans just yet?
There's your answer.
Well, there is that add-on menu, so I don't know if anything's gonna appear there, but I don't know. Maybe.
Tantalizing.
Maybe's good enough. I mean,
Yeah.
I think also, some of us, we map in our free time. So, we did kind of the goofy, disconcerting unease packs. That's just kind of a fun thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
still
what's
map.
was pumpkin spice latte yours, Christian?
Yes, it was.
That's one thing we didn't say, is that you do have a great sense of humor, and it comes across. I mean, you must have a great sense of humor because it does come across in your maps. I was laughing out loud.
Yeah. I have trouble being serious with anything. Yeah, it's a problem I have. I can't be serious.
Andrew, are we going to see any more swamp? You know what I'm saying? Sewer levels?
Yeah, I was thinking like now that I've got, I mean, I guess like in a way the maps I did kind of are sewer levels. Maybe.
Ish.
Yeah, it's questionable.
Yeah. There wasn't too much water.
Yeah, it's not definitive enough, right? And to be a good sewer level, it needs to feel like, I'm in a sewer. Now, one of my first thoughts was like, hey, now this is out the door. It's done. I can make some sewer levels again now. I haven't actually started in on any sewer levels yet, but I don't know. Maybe I feel like I need a good breather after that, but maybe in the future I'll do. I'm kind of tempted, like, man, I haven't done an episode yet, right? Like I've done standalone maps, I've done speed maps and jams, but like a whole episode of sewer levels, that's for me.
As long as you have some spawns in there, you're good to go.
Oh yeah.
And Christian, so I guess we're not going to see a sequel to Insomnia anytime soon. But please keep making Quake maps. I mean,
definitely.
Please, both of you, obviously, and the whole team. And I got to say, for the folks that didn't make it to the interview and everything, really stellar work across the board. And it's just, you can't have enough Quake. So hopefully we're going to see more in that add-on tab one day.
I hope so too.
That's it for this episode. I want to thank Andrew Yoder and Christian Grawert for joining us today and being generous with their time. And thank you to RC for being a great co-host. I miss doing the shows with you. Also, thank you to Michael Markie for this fantastic theme music. And most importantly, thank you, listeners, for enjoying this episode of the Quakecast.